All right, so I got a lot of records here. These are the albums that I have picked up since, I guess the last record haul. So no real rhyme or reason for the ones that we're going to go through. I think I'm just going to start with some of the kind of used records that I got and then go into the rest of them. So yeah, strap yourselves in. This one's going to be fun. All right, so first up, I've been diving really deep into Chick Corea's music. Last summer, I got really into like Return to Forever and a lot of the band members from Return to Forever, like Stanley Clarke, Al Di Meola, Chick, and so I picked up his My Spanish Heart. This was a lot of fun. You know, he's got a lot of different soundscapes on it, all kind of within the Spanish flavor of music. I really have been enjoying this one. This was one of the first ones I actually picked up too, since my last recording. If you like jazz fusion, I think you're really going to love that one. And I'm going to keep on the jazz fusion train because I also picked up a few Herbie Hancock stuff. Love Herbie Hancock. So these are two re-releases. The first one is Mwandishi, I think is how you pronounce it. Mwandishi. Really good experimental stuff on this one. Love these guys. I love Herbie Hancock. Love his more experimentation in terms of, soundscapes on what keyboards could sound in a more jazz setting, specifically on one of his most popular ones, which is Headhunters. I think this is the one that most people know when they're talking about Herbie Hancock. I love it. It's got a lot of really, really infectious grooves on it, and I've just been jamming away to a lot of those different sounds. Going back into some more used stuff that I picked up Sky. This is a very interesting one. It has John Williams on it, and that was the one that kind of perked my ears, but it also has Herbie Flowers, Kevin Peake, Tristan Fry, and Francis Mockman. And what I really loved is, the different movements that we have on here. I mean, this is a double album, and they have a track called Vivaldi, and that was enough for me. So yeah, Sky, I think this is like some really popular kind of like 70s stuff. So yeah, this was great. Another 70s one, I'm trying to complete my Mike Oldfield one. This is his Islands. And yeah, so Islands is kind of this kind of crossover version for Mike Oldfield. The side one is The Wind Chimes parts 1 and 2. And the second side is a bunch of the more yacht rock, soft rock that he was playing around in the late 70s, early 80s. This one was released in 1987, so, quite late 80s. But yeah, it's another really good Mike Oldfield record. Not one of his classics, but, I'm trying to get as many Mike Oldfield stuff as possible. And the final used record that I picked up is Frank Zappa, the one that has his only number one hit of Valley Girls. This is what makes Frank Zappa a one-hit wonder. Ship arriving too late to save a drowning witch. What I really love is that, the first side is a little bit more of the studio stuff. Second side is a lot more live material. And it's just the usual Frank Zappa goodness. I feel like this is also one of his more popular releases. Yeah, released in the early 80s. So great stuff. Really, really love this one. All right, let's move on to some of the new releases that I got. Now, most of these were albums that I had ordered last year and didn't get until like March or April. And the first one is Ryo Okamoto's The Myth of the Monstrous. I have been spinning this one quite heavily. Been really, really loving this one. This was one of my favorite records of last year. This is just my personal take. I think they could have split this up a little bit better on the record, having music on 3 sides with the 4th side being like an etching or something, because it feels a little bit disjointed having Chrysalis being on its own side without any other songs, with The Myth of the Monstrous being also on its own side. So I feel like if Chrysalis was moved up onto side 3 and maybe The Watchmaker moved up onto side A, we would have had a little bit of a more coherent listen. But just look at all the features that are on this. Like, my boy Rio knows how to star-stud his album, and this album, as I mentioned, one of the best albums from last year. Another one that I had ordered way back and was waiting for was one of the Lost Not Forgotten records, which is really interesting. This used to be like one of the official bootlegs. This is the Falling into Infinity demos from 1996 to 1997. I honestly enjoy this a lot more than the actual album itself. It has a little bit more of a raw tinge to it that I think they were going for in the studio that was just polished out of recognition. It also has some of the singles that were released at that time that didn't make it onto the album, like Raise the Knife. That is a fan favorite. I also love the fact that Metropolis Part 2, the kind of demo working that they were having that would eventually be the entire album, but at the time it was being workshopped as a 20-minute big epic, very similar to how Change the Seasons was. So that original kind of demo is found and ended on this one. I think part of the reason why this album took so long for me is because I got it with the the blue on there just for the Falling into Infinity. So I love this. I love what Dream Theater is doing. This is probably one of the few like studio demos that I got outside of the Train of Thought instrumental demos. I'm just not like, I don't want to own a lot of the demos in the studio because, man, they basically put out one for every album that they've done. I'm more interested in owning some of the live stuff. So I have, I think, 2 of their live records, and I'm kind of looking for a third. So really good addition. Really, really like that one. Another album from last year that I've been really, really loving, and oh man, it broke the bank a little bit. I normally wouldn't spend this much for a record, but I saw that it was finally on sale, dropping down a little bit. It's still probably too much, but I finally picked up my second favorite album of the year, the Von Hertz Brothers, the Red Alert and the Blue Forest. This still blows me away. Like it's been out for almost a full year, and it still blows me away just what I'm listening to. I believe this is also the record that has a blue... Yeah. So we've got Red Alert, first record being red, and the Blue Forest. Really love that kind of, call and answer. And I've been loving this record. If you haven't listened to this yet, you gotta. This is one of those records that I think anybody can enjoy. And, I mean, if we're talking about my second favorite record, we might as well talk about my favorite record. I'm kind of going all over the place with all these. And that is Toe Hider. With their I Have Little to No Memories of These Memories. After I had really dove deep into this, I immediately went out and purchased it. It took a while for it to get to me, which I can understand. I love that inner sleeve gatefold. Love the art and the aesthetics of this record. I also love, get ready for it, the actual record itself. Look at that. That is my aesthetic to a T. Depending on how you're looking at it, I mean, you're seeing it more as like a burgundy blue kind of thing. I'm seeing it as a very indigo, deep purple. But yeah, now this is the record version. So there's the part 2 is the bad ending. I'll kind of show you guys up front the bad ending. I'm not as big of a fan of the bad ending as I am for the original ending. It doesn't go on quite as long, and I kind of understand, pressing time. You only have a limited amount of space on there, so you want to make sure that you split it up properly without having to put it onto a different disc. But I'm just not as much of a fan. Part of me that I loved the original version for was the big build-up, the big kind of triumphant hurrah, and that's really what made the album for me. So not a big fan, but I still spin it quite often. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so I think first up, I'm going to talk about some records that I've been meaning to pick up in the past, and I finally pulled the trigger from. First one being Ultraviolence from Lana Del Rey. I am in a big Lana Del Rey mood. I mean, now that we're getting into the summer, I love listening to Lana Del Rey during the evenings in the summer. There's just something about it that's so soothing. This is the first one from her that I have that's a double disc, because I'm not a big fan of the double discs. I like putting down the needle and just letting myself drift off for a while. But yeah, this one has some of the best tracks that she has written. The only other one that I'm really looking forward to is her latest one that I haven't been able to pick up yet, as well as Norman fucking Rockwell. Those are the two that I'm really keeping my eyes open for, but we'll see. Another one that I decided to finally pull the trigger on was one that, I've been dragging my feet for, didn't really want to, but I did a whole review of this album saying that it's not as bad as people like to think it is. And that's Genesis's Calling All Stations, which means I now have all of Genesis's records in physical format on record. This was the only one that I was dragging my feet for because, I don't know, I just felt like there was no need to own it. You know, it wasn't that great. But the more I listened to it in preparation of the album itself for my lukewarm defense, I actually found myself really, really digging it. Especially some of the tracks that I normally wouldn't like Small Talk and Congo and Uncertain Weather. You know, I kind of like those ones a little bit more upon second release. But Calling All Stations and The Dividing Line are still the main reason to come to this album. So yeah, I wanted to pick it up, and now I have a complete collection of my Genesis records. Okay, the other one that I didn't realize that I wanted until I saw it is a Arjen Lucassen project, The Gentle Storm with Annika von Hirschenbergen. Love this record. This was one that came out quite a while ago, 2015, and this one is numbered. It's numbered 813, so I have copy 813. Love this record. If you haven't heard it, it is basically the same record twice, one in a gentle form and one in the storm form. The gentle form is a lot more Celtic. It's a lot more like folky, and the storm is a lot more metally. There's a lot more blast beats to it, a lot more electric guitars. And so I love the fact that this album is kind of done twice, but once in a softer mood and once in a heavier mood. So I highly recommend it if you haven't listened to it. Annika's voice is just stellar. Arjen's compositions are just beautiful, and the two working together just create an unstoppable force. So highly recommend this one. I've been having a ball listening to this one, and I'm really excited to finally have it in my collection. So let's move on to some of the reissues that I have, because there's a few in here that I've been waiting for that are celebrating either milestones or they decided to finally put it out in physical format. And the first one that I want to talk about, jumping off of the Gentle Storm, is another Anthony Lucassen's project of Ayreon. And this is the first record that I got from Ayreon. This is 01011001. As I mentioned, first record I got from Ayreon. This is what really made me fall in love with progressive metal. You know, at that time I was, you know, starting to listen to Dream Theater, but not quite into them yet. I had ordered this one, and the Tangent's not as good as the book. We'll put a pin in that for just a second. But yeah, I'm loving the star performers on here. Part of the reason why I also got this was that Fido Xavier is on this, and I was really deep into Fido's music. You know, Doomsday Afternoon had just been released at that point, and I was devouring that with The Great Leap and Chupacabra and 313. So seeing he was on here in the guest roster, along with people like Simone Simons, Daniel Geldon Lowe, Annika von Hirschenberg, just a great roster of characters, and I love the fact that this is a trifold. So it's really fun, and it's so good to listen to on record, on vinyl, kind of the way it was meant to be listened to, you know? And speaking of the Tangent, I wanted to put a pin in that. Unfortunately, it's not as good as the book. You know, that's one that I'm still keeping my eye out for. The three that I wanted to have is Le Sac de Travail, not as good as the book, and probably my favorite record from them, which is A Place in the Queue. This is one that I listened to right after I really digested and really got into Not As Good As The Book. I have some really fond memories about this record. Love this record. Love the little gatefold that we have on there. Love the graphics on here. Love that it opens up and closes with two epics, In Earnest and A Place in the Queue. And I love all the tracks in between. This is a proper double album. You know, even on CD, I felt like it listened like a double album, and I love the fact that I finally own it, because as I was listening to it on the CD, I would, in my mind, know where it would start the next side, and it's exactly as it is on here. All right, another one that was re-released and remixed, we have Paradox Hotel from the Flower Kings. I know I've talked at length about this one, and Roland Stolt has gone through and kind of like remixed and remastered. I'm not feeling as much change on this record as I did for Adam and Eve and I did for Unfold the Future, but you know, there's still a few things here and there that's a little bit interesting. This is a mixed grab bag. When I talk about mixed grab bag albums, this is the ultimate mixed grab bag because we have songs on here that are 10 out of 10. Like Hit Me With a Hit, End on a High Note, Major Giant Steps, Life Will Kill You, What If God Is Alone, Man of the World. Like all of these tracks are, as I mentioned, 10 out of 10 tracks. But then you get tracks like Lucy Had a Dream, Peruvian Skies, Self-Consuming Fire, Mommy Leave the Lights On, The Way the Waters Are Moving, that are just like maybe a 2 or 3 out of 10. So it's such a mixed grab bag, but I had to own it because in my mind, the 4 perfect album run starts with Unfold the Future and ends with Son of No Evil. And you know I have that one on order, so hopefully in August, I'll be having that one, and I'll showcase that at my summer haul. All right, I think those are all of the... there's another one. What's this? This is one that's actually celebrating its 10th year anniversary, and that is Migrant from The Deer Hunter. Man, this album is one that is very, very underrated within the Deer Hunter discography. This is the first one that kind of deviated from the whole Axe suites, and I just keep coming back to it. It's the perfect length. It has a lot of the more experimental side of the Deer Hunter. It's a lot more like immediate and in your face, and I cannot stop listening to it. I think this is one of the best Deer Hunter. It's also the easiest to get into because you don't have this big overarching story to kind of try to figure out. It's, it paved, this walked so that Antimai could run. So yeah, loving this record, and I love the fact that it is celebrating its 10-year anniversary. I think Casey has taken it on the road and actually touring with it, and I think that's great, and I can't wait to listen to that. All right, let's talk about some records that were released this year. And honestly, I don't have a whole lot of records that have been released this year. Most of the time by this point, I have a number of records from that year, but I don't know, not a whole lot were really interesting me. First off, let's just finish up with some of the records that came out last year. I know I did that little spiel, but like this was one that came out this year. This is King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard live in Leviathan, I believe it is. And so we have 2 performances, one that was recorded in May of 2014, one that was recovered in May in 2016. So it's really... it's great, we got a lot of really interesting tracks on here. It's kind of doing their usual bootleg kind of, and the sound is great. Whenever you get a live King Gizzard album, it always sounds so good, even if it's bootlegged, And with that, I have Changes, my favorite record from last year from King Gizzard with their big 6 album run. I'm still looking for Laminated Denim because that's the other one that I want. And every time I look at Ice Death, it's always too expensive. It's just always that little bit extra that I'm not comfortable spending for what it is. But I finally got Changes. Love it on here. And I love that each of the changes, I didn't realize this until I actually saw each of the words spell out changes. So I didn't realize that. But yeah, love this. As I mentioned, favorite record from last year from King Gizzard, even though I'm still looking for Laminated Denim. And if I find Ice Death in a good price, then I'll go for that. Okay, we got 3 records from this year. First one up is a contender still for the album of the year for me. It's a very strong contender, even though we're coming into the, midway point of 2023, if you can friggin' believe it. And that is Liturgies with their record 93696. Some great black death metal, really black metal. Loving this record. The symphony, the soundscapes, the nooks and crannies on this record. Just brilliant and beautiful. Really been loving this record. If you're a really big fan of that really aggressive, very intense metal, you're going to find something really special on this one. There's a couple tracks on here that go into the 10, 12 minute mark, and those are the ones that I really, really enjoy. Love this record. Really, really love it. And, the baggage of the band with some of their manifestos and philosophies and all that, where it might be a little much, but, I dig it. I dig it. All right, final 2. I broke down and I bought it. I bought it. Yeah, Crown Lands, Fearless. You know, I wasn't all that favorable to this record, but the more I listen to it, the more I appreciate it. You know, the amount of talent that we have from these two individuals just blows me away. And I love the fact that they're playing a little bit more into the progressive leanings of Rush's music and, you know, bringing that to the forefront. You know, these guys started off this record with a 20-minute big epic. And if you're getting national notoriety on that level, you know, I think you're doing something good for the music at hand. You know, like this is kind of in the same vein that, you know, the classic rock that ushered forth from like Led Zeppelin was being emulated with Greta Van Fleet. I love the fact that these guys are doing that same thing, but with Rush music. So yeah, loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And the final one, the final piece, this is one that keeps growing on me. You know, again, another one that I wasn't necessarily all that favorable to when you compare it to the rest of their discography. But the more I listen to it, the more I get out of it. And that is Haken's Fauna. This is probably the album I've spun the most this year so far. Every time I listen to it, it gives more and more back. I'm just loving the denseness of this record. I just, again, I love that centerfold. I really want their shirts that they wore because I saw this on tour. Yeah, it's a really, really dense and great album. I love the direction that Haken's going to. Even though I kind of wish they'd go back more towards the symphonic metal side, I appreciate the fact that they're at least experimenting and trying something new. So there you go. Those are all the records that I've picked up since the last record haul that I think I did back in the winter time. Now that the summer's starting up, I usually take a little bit of a breather for buying new records. So I'm pumping the brakes a little bit for that, and I'll probably pick it up again in the fall. So yeah, what did you guys pick up within the past couple of months? What were the albums that I showcased that you liked the most? Which were the ones that you were most surprised about? Let me know all about that by commenting down below. I always love doing this because I love to hear A, what people thought of the collection that I picked up, and B, what they themselves picked up. So please let me know about that. I'm really excited to hear what you guys have in store. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. That's where I'm going to leave it for you guys today. Thank you all so much for tuning in and checking this little video out. I don't say it enough, but please be sure to subscribe and ring that bell. I have a lot of subscribers and not a whole lot of views on my individual actual videos. So I think hitting that bell will help people remind them that, hey, you're subscribed to this great fellow. So maybe you want to give them a little bit of a watch every now and again. So yeah, I hope you guys are doing good. I hope you guys are doing great. And I'm going to leave you guys on that note. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.